Welcome back to the Winter Wolf's Den, guys. We're going to talk Sonic 2 news today. Got the opportunity to see it over the weekend. I brought my 6-year-old son. We had a blast. Let's get it going. So you might have noticed that there's a new kingpin at the box office this weekend. Sonic 2 taking the world by storm, raking in an amazing $72 million at the box office. Critics on Rotten Tomatoes giving it about a 68% last time I checked. Audience scores much higher as usual for this kind of film. But I might have something shocking to say on this one. I think this time I'm siding with the critics. But we'll get into that in a little bit, but first, let me get you up to speed on the movie. As always, we're going to do major spoilers in the synopsis. If you need to see the movie first, please bounce, come back, check out what I got to say after the fact. So I hate to ruin it for you, but I promise you, if you've got kids, you're definitely going to have a good time with it. So go check that out and then come back if you haven't seen it. So we start off in Eggman MacGyver's his way off of the Mushroom Planet after hanging out there for a while. Knuckles shows up, they strike a deal, they're trying to track down the source of Sonic's power. They work it out, you'll see what happens. We meet up with our furry blue hero. Sonic is moonlighting as a superhero in Seattle. He's snuck out of the house like a bad hedgehog, and he's fighting crime part-time at night. Shenanigans ensues. He destroys a couple of city blocks, but he considers it a victory and a job well done. We get back on the home front. We see the Wachowskis. They're hanging out. They're about to head out of town. Tom's a little bit nervous about leaving Sonic on his own, but they bounce to go to Maddie Wachowski's sister's wedding in Hawaii, which effectively gets them out of the way so the real stuff can pop off and Sonic can cope with some stuff on his own. We get a little bit of some Home Alone / risky business shenanigans as Sonic tears up the house, and then gets it all cleaned up just in time for Eggman and Knuckles to crash his party. Knuckles handily defeats Sonic in the little action bit that they have there. Thankfully, Tails shows up after hijacking a police car and bails Sonic out. We get to the middle half of the movie. More shenanigans ensues. The pace slows a little bit. We hit what's probably the silliest thing I've seen in a live action movie since Ghostbusters 2016, but it worked for the kids, so I'm gonna let that slide. Get a little bit of a fetch quest. There's a map. Gotta find the Master Emerald. Anybody familiar with the game going back in the day to the Sega Genesis will know what that is. We come up towards the end of the movie. Eggman's exposed his true colors to Knuckles. That little alliance is done. The team we've all come to know and love since the mid-90s form up. They have their little Avengers moment. They defeat the giant Eggman robot boss from Sonic 2, I think it was. And the Wachowski family expands with a couple extra furry mouths to feed. Roll credits. Stick around, because about 10 seconds into those credits, you get your obligatory Marvel-style stinger setting up the third movie. And you're going to get a fan-favorite character revealed there, but I'm not saying anything else. Wild horses couldn't drag it out of me. So before I break into the howls and snarls that I have for this particular film, I'd like to throw a shout out to both Jim Carrey and Idris Elba for their respective roles as Dr. Eggman and Knuckles. Jim Carrey, this might have been the role he was born to play, guys. He brings something special to the table with this character. It's a perfect combination of body language and just physical comedy that he brings. It's hysterical. I laughed out loud at least 2-3 times on a couple of the quips and one-liners he had. Idris Elba, same thing. He just brings a level of gravitas to the role that you wouldn't think an animated character translating to live action would deserve. But he really does, and I love the dialogue that Knuckles gives as kind of a fish out of water. He almost kind of reminded me of Michael Dorn's Worf from Star Trek The Next Generation, where everything is about the honor of battle and that kind of stuff. It was cool to see that kind of that character in a Sonic movie. I'm digging that. I hope they bring him back for the next installment. I can't imagine that they wouldn't. Everybody seems to love the performance. So I got a couple of howls that I'm going to give you, and the howls are my pros, guys. I'm going to try a new segment, howls and snarls. So up on the howls, love the character designs from the main characters all around to Dr. Eggman's updated costume and his drones. The CG was fairly seamless. I didn't notice anything that jumped right out. The furry fuzzball characters and the red, yellow, and blues, they had good facial expressions, good body mechanics. They seemed to integrate really well into the background. They looked like they were part of the world as it was unfolding, which I thought was good. It was fun to watch them do their thing in real time. Second howl, Knuckles' progression. I made a special note of that in my notes coming out of the theater. I didn't want to forget that. Writers would do well to pay attention to how they got him done. He's introduced as a character who's kind of naive to the way the world works. So he falls in with Eggman, but very subtly in about 3 or 4 key scenes, he starts to put together exactly what Eggman's all about, and you can actually see the progression of his trust level kind of faltering off until he eventually teams up with Blue Justice, as Sonic has taken to calling himself in this one. So just wanted to give the writers of that a special well done on that. Howl number 3, Sonic, aka Blue Justice, like I just said, is a worthy hero with the proper traits, getting all the screen time and spotlight they deserve. He's kind, he's courageous, he's determined, he doesn't give up, all that good stuff. And especially in what could be considered mainly a kid's movie, guys, these are the kind of traits I'd like to see come back in our superhero films at large. They're glaringly absent in too much media these days, and I think that's sad. I think now more than ever, people could probably use these kind of films to just get out, escape for a little while, and enjoy something that doesn't leave you feeling kind of bleak and hopeless and apathetic on the way out. So Sonic, 2 thumbs up as the titular hero just right out the gate. And Howl number 4. I'd like to give another big kudos to the scriptwriters on expanding the story world by bringing in more lore from the game, particularly in the form of the Master Emerald. It's cool to see the video games being respected, the source material being respected. I'm always going to be a big fan of the writers, developers, showrunners, whomever, reaching back to the OG script and source material for the stuff that they want to put on the big screen and not just kind of wing it on their own. Attention Halo, I'm talking to you. So they made a couple of good decisions there, and I like to see that kind of stuff come up more, especially as the sequels go on, because there's no way they're not making 3, 4, 5 of these movies, guys. They're going to clear 100 million by the end of Monday would be my guess, and that doesn't even count in the worldwide. And then Howl number 5. Can we please get Tika Sumpter in more things that are interesting on the big screen? The woman is entirely too gorgeous. I could watch her do anything on screen for 5, 6, 7, 12 hours at a time. I could watch her play solitaire and I'd be a happy guy. Entirely too good looking. But that brings us up on the snarl section, guys. I don't have a whole lot to complain about on this one. This is a great movie all around. I'm just going to point out a couple of little nitpicky things here. Snarls were mainly meandering middle, as I like to call it, when Act 2 of a book or a movie comes through. You get a pointless wedding subplot with Maddie Wachowski's sister. It was clearly only there to remove the Wachowskis from the larger story until they could reappear at the end. Kind of just take them off the board and give Sonic a bigger opportunity to play with the new friends he finds in the movie. There were different ways they could have pulled that off, in my opinion. I didn't like seeing Tom Wachowski minimized in this one to the extent that they did. More on that in a little bit, because that's kind of a bigger pet peeve that I did have. Snarl number 2. The fetch quest was just too easy. Sonic has the map. Longclaw tells him what to do with the map. Tails kajiggers something of a GPS thing, and they solve the puzzle really quick. On the way to solving the puzzle really quick, there was a really lame dance number. Not even a dance number, it was like a dance off that seemed lame even by kid standards. I kind of looked around the theater I was in with my son. None of the kids seemed too particularly hyped about it. They were up standing and cheering at a couple of other scenes closer to the end, but they didn't seem to be too into what was going on dance number wise, so I might have dropped the ball on that one a little bit. Snarl number 3. They get into an interesting Sonic growing up angle, but I felt like they left it undercooked. It had to do with Sonic mostly being, the only one of his kind, or the only alien on Earth. And they kind of framed it as a whole. He's lonely and he needs wingmen or a crew to be able to fit in better and, live his best life. I'll give you a little bit more on that one a little bit too. And then snarl number 4, I just mentioned a couple seconds ago, they way reduced or minimized Tom Wachowski's role in this movie, the character Tom Wachowski. And they went a little bit even further with that, is they kind of shuffled him aside and gave more of the buddy relationship action from the first movie over to his wife, over to Maddie, which I thought was a really strange narrative choice there. There were at least 2 or 3 scenes that I recall where Sonic was having a back and forth with the 2 of them together, but he would make the first comment and then she would answer directly to that comment, and then Tom Wachowski would give him the, yeah, she's right, we should totally do that kind of line, like the follow-up line, which I thought was a weird flip from how the first movie went, where they kind of set up, Sonic and Tom as being best friends kind of thing. They were definitely looking for more of a father-son relationship theme in this one. We got one good pep talk scene that did come up after Sonic tore up a city block in Seattle, at the beginning of the movie, but it didn't seem like they really took that. They didn't really play up that plot angle as much as they could have. And that, as I shift over into the final section of what I'm going to cover here today, in the Winter Wolf Fixes section, they had a couple of good ideas that they were playing with here in terms of Sonic growing up and also in terms of his relationship that he does have with Tom. But they didn't focus enough on them for them to really pay the kind of emotional dividends I think they were trying to cash in on. I think they hit all those marks pretty good in the first movie, but here they felt kind of glossed over. And that's sad because by the end of the first Sonic movie, they had really, I think they were hitting on something special there between the two characters. Particularly of note, in this movie here, they just kind of randomly drop in that Tom feels bad that Sonic doesn't have any friends or he doesn't have any wingmen. It comes up when Tom observes Maddie's future brother-in-law hanging out at like the resort where they're getting married. He's hanging out with his buddies. Tom kind of laments that Sonic's all here, he's all alone, there's nobody like him, yada yada. But it struck me as odd because Sonic never actually expresses any of that concern on his own in this movie. In Sonic 1, you got the scene on the baseball field, and I thought that was pretty powerful stuff, where Sonic, he ends up playing baseball by himself, and then he realizes he is alone, and that's what sets off the supercharge that draws Eggman's attention in part 1. But in this movie here, Sonic seems like he's doing okay. He's trying to do the crime fighting thing. He's not really complaining about not having anybody in his corner, not having any wingmen. But they mentioned it, and I feel like there's some stuff that's on the cutting room floor of this one that they just kind of left behind, and that's too bad. I think that could have paid off really nicely towards the end. The other really weird thing that they tried to build in this one was like I mentioned earlier, the father-son relationship, or the parent-child relationship, because Maddie at one point mentions a similar need to be able to protect their child, meaning Sonic, which I thought was strange, because even though they kind of took him in at the end of the first movie, I didn't think there was a family vibe, but it wasn't necessarily a parent-child vibe. But they did try to play that up at the end of this one, and it just kind of came out of nowhere and kind of caught me off guard. But overall, guys, I'm going to go with this is definitely a 2 thumbs up. It's a great movie to take the kids to see on April vacation if you guys are on that. I would definitely look into that. I'm interested to see where they take the franchise from here. There's so much they could bring in. I'd love to hear what you guys would like to see coming up next. There's a bunch of villains they could bring in. My son on the way out was asking me if Zavik was up next, and I had to go do a quick check to see which one Zavik was because I didn't remember. I'd like to see if they could bring in Silver. That would be cool. I'd like to see Blaze. I'd like to see Vector. There's so much they could do, guys. So who do you want to see? Let me know below. Maybe you'd like to see Amy popping in. That might be a pretty solid move for them to bring in Amy Rose at this point, particularly if they're going with the Sonic is growing up right before our eyes thing. We get a little love interest going for him. That'd be kind of cool to see the teenage romance there. But who knows? Drop me a like if you don't mind. Consider following the channel. I'd love to have you back for future editions of pop news and reviews. We're going to take a look at some Marvel series coming up. I have a couple of things that I want to say about things like She-Hulk, Moon Knight, and Ironheart. Those will be in the news soon. But until next time, this is Winter Wolf, and I'll see you then.